What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Splash, and I am back to talk some Lamar Jackson contract. Before we get started, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring a ding ding, that Le'Veon bell, that notification bell, so you can get notified when I upload another one of these. So, Lamar Jackson, he's been in the news recently. He had a public spat with Bernard Pollard, former Raven, and the contract still hanging over his head. And ESPN Plus said he was the 11th best quarterback in the NFL, and people were outraged, right? How can you take Dak Prescott? Well, we're not here to discuss that. What we are here is to discuss the dollar bills that Lamar Jackson will be making very soon. So, with the season around the corner, he finally arrived to the Ravens offseason activities last month, and he doesn't have a new deal, but coming to practice is a sign that Lamar is committed to the Ravens in 2022. He will be playing this year on the 5th-year option, but it is set to expire in March. So the Ravens have some work ahead. The next big step is, of course, inking Lamar Jackson to that mega deal, that mega contract that we all know he deep down deserves. But let's get started. How many years will it be? So Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have set these dangerous precedents that Allen, 6-year deal, Mahomes, 10-year deal. That was originally 12 total years of control for the Chiefs, but it's a 10-year extension. Allen brings in $43 million a year annually, and Mahomes brings in $45 million a year annually, at least over the 10 years of the extension. The contract length is interesting for two reasons, both for Jackson and the Ravens. So for Jackson, a shorter contract can have him re-up after several seasons. So let's say he signs a 2-year deal. After 2 years, let's say he wins back-to-back MVPs or something, he might get paid $60 million a year or $55 million a year, something like that. However, the short contract also says, hey, you actually got to play at that level, or else you could go from, $45 million a year to 40, 35, or not even get paid. So on the other hand, you could go for a longer deal, like an Allen, 6 years, like a Mahomes, 10 years. You would have the financial security stretching for most of the rest of the decade at this point, but it locks you into that value. So if you overplay, well, you're still getting paid $45 million a year, which granted, at that point, it would be worth it, of course, but maybe you want more. That's the tough thing about negotiating long deals. Now, the Ravens are having these same exact conversations internally. If they give Lamar a shorter deal, it's probably fully guaranteed. Think Kirk Cousins, 3 years, was it $69 million? I feel like it was more than that with the Vikings. But if you do a shorter deal, let's say a 2-year deal, and he stinks, you can get out of that contract. So my prediction, I've been torn 4 or 5 years. I would probably go 3 or 4 with more lucrative deals and say, hey, you're worth the money. And in 4 or 5 years, we can re-up, but we do need some financial flexibility. You could also angle it with the long term, 6, 7 years. But I would say either a 4-year contract or a 5-year contract. Either way, I think Lamar would be more than satisfied. Now let's talk about the money. That's why you're here. The money will make the most headlines. It will be a big old dollar sign. But remember that it's going to be more closely resembling a bank vault than what you make or what I make. And even if he doesn't reset the quarterback market, he's going to get north of $40 million. Last year, the conversation was $40 million. This year, it might be 45. It might be 50. Inflation helps inflate contract value over time. Inflate, you got it. So Jackson might earn more than a Mahomes or an Allen or a Rodgers or whomever, pick your favorite quarterback. Doesn't necessarily mean he's better than them, just how money works here. And this is what's going to come up with Kyler when he gets his contract, Joe Burrow when he gets his contract, and Justin Herbert, that they're going to probably jump Jackson even if you don't think they're better than Lamar. So the leading number in the Lamar Jackson average annual value will be a 4. I am 100% certain of it. Is it 40? Is it 49? I don't know yet, but I'm 100% sure it will be a 4. One could argue he's worth $50 million to the Ravens. I'm not opposed to that argument. What he's done to turn, like, even last year, you look at the last month of the season, they just lost all the games without Lamar. If Lamar plays, they probably make the playoffs. Do they win the Super Bowl? I don't think so, but they're probably in the playoffs. You win a couple extra games. So, anyways, right now, the most expensive average annual value contract is Aaron Rodgers. It's over 50 million. I don't think Lamar is going to get there, but that's a shorter deal. So maybe Lamar gets a 2-year, $104 million deal, something goofy like that. Then you'd crack that 50 million annual value. I don't think it's going to get there. So despite Lamar posting his worst season last season, he likely made himself a lot of extra money because the Ravens went from 8-3, top of the AFC, with Lamar at the helm, to 8-9, out of the playoffs, and the 14th pick in the draft, their worst pick since the Stanley draft. That's not good. And the Ravens know that. Lamar Jackson knows that. And that is a huge bargaining chip, that he is so much better than Tyler Huntley. And around the league, Tyler Huntley is seen as like a good backup, a top 40 quarterback, maybe a top 35 quarterback. Lamar is significantly better than him. And it shows on the field. You look at the wins, you look at the losses. So that's something that Lamar can say, hey, I'm so much better than my backup, and my backup's like a good player. This is, I guess, let me try to give you an example. Like a Jalen Hurts and a Minshew. Like Minshew's a good backup, and Hurts can say, hey, I'm a lot better than Minshew. But say like Brady can't say, well, I'm so much better than Blaine Gabbert. Well, Blaine Gabbert's not a top 50 quarterback. So if that makes sense. So Jackson did struggle last season. I will say it is slightly exaggerated because he had the worst game of his career and then a smaller sample size. So it's kind of like Cam Akers had the 5 carries for 3 yards in the regular season game. That's not indicative of his actual talent level. That's just one game, but it would happen to be the only regular season game he played. Anyways, Jackson still brings a lot to this team. When he plays, they are one of the best teams in the NFL. It is as simple as that. They led the NFL in point differential in both 2019 and 2020. Over that 2-year span, in games that he started, the Ravens went 24-6? Like, respectfully, 24-6. That speaks for itself. Even last year, even if you throw in the Browns game, kind of unfair, they're 31-11 in the last 3 years under Lamar Jackson. All told, they're 37-12. You can talk about the defense. You can talk about the rushing game. You can talk about Harbaugh. You can talk about Tucker. I get that. But you don't win 75% of your games by just having a good defense, or just having the greatest kicker to ever live, or just having a good coach. You win 75+% of your games when you have a darn good quarterback. And that's what Lamar Jackson is. So my projection on the average annual value of the contract, somewhere between $42 million a year, $46 million a year. If it's a longer deal, it might be closer to 42, 43. If it's a shorter deal, it might be closer to 45, 46, maybe even higher. I would say, gun to my head, I would say 4 years, 44 million. You could do 45 million, 46 million. I think he's worth it. And you don't let an elite caliber quarterback walk out of the building. And yes, I know elite is a word that people throw around a lot, but Lamar is a difference maker at the quarterback position. He is a league-wide difference maker. He is an X factor. He is a force multiplier. If he was just a running back, he's probably a top 10 running back. But then he adds value as a passer, and he's a top 20 thrower of the football in the NFL. And then he is one of the most dynamic players with the ball in his hands the league has ever seen. Not active players, not in the last 20, ever seen, point blank. So there are 2 factors at play with the upcoming deadline, if you will. So Jackson is his own agent. He and his mom organize the financials there. So this does not lend itself particularly well to a simultaneous play and negotiation strategy. So, for example, if you're Eric DaCosta, a normal player, you could talk to his agent while the player is on the field, and you're good, right? But Lamar, acting as his own agent, can't be in 2 places at once. He's not throwing footballs to James Prochet while talking money with Eric DaCosta. That's just not how that works. And second, Jackson, at least what he shows publicly, is team centric. He is painted in wait. It seems that he wants to wait for that mega deal until after he wins a Super Bowl. You go back to the draft interview right after he got drafted, 32 overall in 2018. He said he wants to bring a Super Bowl to Baltimore. Look, if deep down he wants to get paid $75 million and he doesn't care if they win a Super Bowl, I don't know that. But from what I have seen publicly, Lamar wants to win a Super Bowl before he cap strings the Ravens. So maybe Jackson's having a different conversation with the Costa and company, but the priority list appears to be Super Bowl then contract. And the final details of the contract. It's a two-way street for both Baltimore and Lamar. Lamar can bet on it himself and make money if they win the Super Bowl, lose money if he struggles. And if the Ravens, you look at that and you say, what happened 10 years ago? Oh, yeah, that's right. You had a fifth-year quarterback, former first-round pick, goes out and wins a Super Bowl, and then he makes a bunch more money. Well, if you think Lamar Jackson is that guy, pay him now. Just pay him now. Pay him the $44 million a year, $45 million, whatever. Pay him now, and then go win the Super Bowl, because that Super Bowl is going to jack up his price. So, like I said, 10 years ago, the Ravens were in this exact situation. You had a quarterback that you didn't know if you could get it done. Flacco did have more playoff success than Lamar, but he didn't reach quite the peaks. Also, he wasn't good in the playoffs. People forget, they say, oh, well, he won 5 playoff games. That's true, but how many of those games was he the big difference maker? Not many. You had the game at Foxborough in 2009 that Flacco had 4 completions. Like, what? Like, Flacco's not the one stirring the drink. Lamar is the one stirring the drink here. And Flacco earned a 6-year, $120.6 million deal, $20.1 million average annual value. Lamar's going to more than double that, but it remains to be seen. Jackson, of course, is better than Flacco ever was, but the Ravens might be skittish for Flacco 2.0. At the 6 years of the contract, the Ravens only made the playoffs twice. Once with Lamar as the starter, once with Flacco as the starter. Not great contract value there. After paying Flacco, you just couldn't fill out the roster with the requisite talent. Of course, you lost Ray Lewis and you lost Ed Reed to retire. You lost Ray to retirement. You lost Ed. He went to the Texans and Jets and then retired. So you lost a lot of talent, but you couldn't retain the talent you had on that Super Bowl roster. You couldn't retain Anquan Boldin for year after year after year. Torrey Smith eventually left. And you eventually lost all these super talented pieces. And I believe now the only player left from the 2012 team is Justin Tucker. Sam Cook retired. Anthony Levine, I believe, is elsewhere now. So you're stuck there. So if you are scared of paying Lamar, that can be a big reason why. And the Lamar contract could be even more crippling. On the other hand, Baltimore is a really good drafting team. Eric DeCosta seems like every year he's getting A's, and even when he doesn't hit on the top pick, even when Patrick Queen isn't great, he hits on the lower round picks. He makes good trades. He makes savvy investments. He gets Calais Campbell for a 5th round pick. He turns Hayden Hurst, a 1st round pick, into a 2nd round pick, which is a net negative, but you get J.K. Dobbins with that, and it all evens out. Dobbins is a 1st round caliber player. You happen to get him in round 2 because of depressed value of running back. You have the Marquise Brown trade, which I think was a win-win for everybody. And you have already paid a lot of the stars. Ronnie Stanley has been paid. Mark Andrews has been paid. The secondary has been paid. Justin Tucker has been paid. So, yes, they've had little playoff success, only the one playoff win. Getting to the playoffs with a talented roster is half the battle. You can't win the Super Bowl without making the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has shown he can put the Ravens in a position to make the playoffs. They made the playoffs the first 3 years. He was a starter, and they were the number 1 seed in the conference until he got injured in 2021. And he missed a game in the middle of that. They did win that game, but he still missed a game in the middle of that. So you look at that and you say, the Ravens are probably going to make the playoffs. And guess what? If you make the playoffs, it's health the best at that time, and Baltimore could be the answer to who's the healthiest, who's playing the best at any given time. All it takes is one hot streak and you win a Super Bowl. Ask Joe Flacco. 40% of his career playoff wins came in one run. Ask Matthew Stafford. He didn't win a playoff game until this year. He won 4 in a row. Ask Patrick Mahomes. He had 1 playoff win, then he rattles off 3, he wins the Super Bowl. So even Joe Flacco, he had 5 playoff wins in his first 4 seasons, but he had a lower passer rating than Lamar in those games. He's the only player in the history of the NFL to have a lower passer rating in the playoffs through their first 4 seasons than Lamar. But everything flipped in 2012. He beat the Colts, beat the Broncos, beat the Patriots, beat the 49ers. And Flacco was the key in a lot of that, a key in scoring 38 in Denver, scoring 34 in the Super Bowl, things like that. Flacco was a huge contributor in that. And that's why he got paid. So we will see. All it might take is one more bite of the apple for Lamar and Baltimore. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Splash.